like to call to order the workshop meeting of Joliet Junior College District 525.
Kelly call roll.
Kelly, would you call the roll, please?
Roderick. Did you hear me? Okay, just go on to the next one. Okay. Garcia.
Here, present.
Mahalik.
Present.
Morales.
Here.
O'Connell. Washington.
Present.
Wilkinson.
Here.
Wunderlich.
Here. First item, 1.3, review of summary notes. Everybody have in their packet. Any questions? If not, we'll move on to 2.1, ERP update.
Okay, I'd like to invite Mr. Jerome Godlock to the podium to provide you with your quarterly update on the ERP implementation process.
Thank you, and thank you to the board and the cabinet. I'd like to present today kind of an update on where we are on the ERP project. Our last update was in June of 2020. Since then, I'd like to talk about some of the challenges we've had as a project, but at the same time, what we're doing to overcome those challenges. And also at the same time, provide some highlights on what's occurred between June of last year and this January, and then provide a glimpse as to what we're going to be doing in the future. Some of the challenges, obviously remote work, employees working remotely along with the consultants that we've hired to help with the implementation of the Workday system. We've also had some challenges as it relates to training. And again, training for the system is being done remotely. So employees are having to do that training remotely. And then the limitations that you run into when you're doing video and audio conferencing. It's not the same as obviously being face-to-face. We also, just with everyone else within JJC, we had resignations at the executive level. And as those new hires came on board, or our new executive steering committee, we're getting those people up to date on where we are with the project and the changes that are coming. Also, we've had key team members that have resigned, both in HR and finance. And we've had some unplanned leaves of absence, whether it was due to COVID or other items that came up. So what we've been doing is, as it relates to remote work, we've spent a lot of time making sure that people have proper equipment and everything they do to work remote for the project. We've also provided special training on how to use Microsoft Teams, on how to share their screens and be able to show us what they're doing as we're also showing the organization what we're doing and how to use the new system. Also, for executive steering committee, obviously the transition of new hires that have come in and getting them up to speed as soon as we can on where we are with the project, decisions that have been made, and where we're going with the project in the future. For key team member resignations, we were prepared by having backups in every area, and those backups are now filling those areas where we did have key team member resignations. At the same time, as JJC is trying to shore up those vacancies by hiring new people and bringing in new people, we're actively working to get them trained and up to date as fast as we can on the ERP project as well as Workday training. And then for the unplanned leaves of absences and things that occurred, during the months of November and December, the project took a 50% slowdown in our schedule. And essentially what that was for is to get people rested, up to date, and for those people returning from leave, they were able to return from leave during that period, so that as we came into January, we were able to start the project again 100%. So before I go into our timeline, the next page, it really talks about the products. And when we say products, some people may call them modules. These are the components of each of the implementation paths that we're going with Workday. The first one we call platform, which is called HCM and finance. And this is the one that we're working on right now that will be going live in June and July of this year. And this one is where we'll be bringing in the modules of recruiting, core HR, benefits, et cetera. So I've given you this just for your own edification so that you can understand kind of what's happening in each of the areas that we will be implementing for the Workday project. The next page then goes into a very high level with the items that I just showed you, which ones will be rolling out and going live. Our platform system, which is the HR, payroll, and finance system, will be going live in June and July of this year. We will start the cutover in the mid-June period with our final go-live activities occurring on July 1st with your new fiscal year. At the same time, we have also implemented and started down the path of implementing the student system. And for the student system, I'll talk about that a little later. The first wave of modules that will be going live will be the recruiting and admissions system. And that will be going live this fall. And then following that will be the rest of the student system. And again, on the previous page, I gave you a list of all of those, but that will actually be the final push of the Workday system that will go live in 3 different phases throughout 2022 and the final stage in 2023. So now I'm going to talk right now a little detail on where we are with the platform detailed timeline. And platform, again, is the HR, payroll, finance, procurement, and expense system. We've completed all of the planning and architecture phase. When we last met, we were going into unit testing. Unit testing is where each individual team essentially starts testing the system to make sure it meets the need for an individual team. So recruiting will make sure that it's working for recruiting. Benefits will make sure it's working for benefits. Payroll will do certain payrolls and make sure the system is generating payroll the way we think. That is what we did in unit testing, and it's also called siloed testing because each of those groups are kind of working hand in hand individually within their own groups. As we finish that, we've started the build of our reports and our integrations. And our integrations is where after, say we run a payroll, we send data to banks, et cetera. That's some of the work that is starting right now as we speak. And we're gearing up starting in February with our end-to-end testing. End-to-end testing is the next, and if you've ever gone through these type of implementations, they have also been called parallel testing. But what we're going to be doing at this point is we will be taking the system and taking a recruit all the way into the hire process, providing that person benefits, and then running a payroll for that same individual. So now we link the system together with all of those pieces coming together. Same thing on expenses, and on the procurement side, we'll be taking everything from the start all the way to the finish of the process, and eventually looking at how that looks from a reporting perspective for our financial system. So that's kind of where we are today. We've finished a lot of work, and now we're preparing to go into that end-to-end testing. That end-to-end testing will go all the way through the May time period. And at that point, we start to transition into our deployment phase where we're getting ready for go live. On the student side, as I mentioned in October, we implemented the student project and we started down the planning phase. We're in the midst of our architecture phase, and actually starting in February, we will start the unit testing for the student system for recruiting and admissions. So with that, that's kind of where we are on the student side and getting ready again for our unit testing, which will be our big push. So for future activities, so what's happening between now and our go live? One is a focus on testing. Unit testing is complete, but end-to-end testing is where we really make sure that the system is meeting all the needs for JJC. Also at the same time, a focus on training. Preparing to train all employees and managers within JJC. So it's not just the people running the back office. There's going to be a lot of changes to the district and a lot of paper going away. So we'll have self-service and things that employees will be able to do that today they're not able to do on the system, they will be able to do that. I'm sorry, they'll be able to do it in the system, and we'll be removing paper, but that change management, we have to make sure that people understand what those changes mean to them. Also, we'll be preparing all of our functional and technical resources to be able to support the system. So once we go live, the consultants will be leaving. We need to make sure that we're self-sufficient within JJC to manage those systems. And we start to initiate change management activities, which again talks about what is changing in the organization as it relates to Workday to make sure that everyone is aware of that and ready to adopt the new system. So with that, that's a high-level overview on, where we've been, kind of some of the challenges and what we've done to get around those challenges, and at the same time, what we're doing to prepare to move forward with the system. Any questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
Can you tell me a little bit about now that many people are working from home due to COVID, do you have a schedule where people have to be logged in while they're doing their training for this program?
So the training is actually managed. So the way it's working now, Workday has a training program. We have purchased credits that allow people to take those. And so, yes, when you sign up for a course or a class, very similar to a student signing up at JJC, those classes are taught at a specific time. We have a training coordinator in-house at JJC that manages that makes sure every person is signed up for that training and then make sure that they take the training. And the executive steering committee, the cabinet, has made sure that those individuals have the time dedicated to take that training. Some of these training courses are very big. They can range from 4 days in duration on the payroll and some of the other courses that people are taking.
So they're kind of working the time to train and learn at home independently. I'm assuming it's independent. Is it like self-study, or how are they learning?
It's actually 3 different, we have, they have instructor-led courses. So there's actually remotely an instructor that is leading the course and walking people through individually. There is also some independent courses, and some courses are video only. So it ranges from those 3. The video only are really more what I call high-level introductory courses. But when you get into the detailed courses of, say, benefits, and I'm speaking on the platform side, whether it's core HR, recruiting, or payroll, those are generally instructor-led courses, but the instructor is remote. They're not in a classroom together.
And then how are we measuring their success and how they're learning? Are they having to do like a quiz at the end? Are they having to take on a project? And I ask this only because I recently underwent a whole weeks and weeks and weeks of training for a new business that I started, and majority of it was at home through videos, and I had to show, there were surveys that I had to take and exams to test my knowledge, to make sure that I knew, how to manage the different types of platforms that I would be working on. So I'm wondering, how are our staff, are they having to take similar, because what I don't want to see is that once we're back to a new normal, people say, well, it was at home, I really didn't learn well. How are we measuring that they are really learning and that they're going to be successful while they're at home? Because a lot of people need that in person, the online just doesn't work. So how are we measuring their success?
Very good question. And the answer to that is something called what we call customer confirmation sessions. So as we've gone through to get to this point, what's happening this month is each one of those silos I talked about, whether it's benefits, whether it's financial accounting, whether it's budget, they've been going through an area where they essentially have been going through these customer confirmation sessions to kind of show what they've learned and to be able to drive that with the consultants to kind of give feedback to, this is how we set up the system, and oh, by the way, let me show you some of the operational components of how the system works, and walking through that. And so we are probably about 50 to 60% through those customer confirmation sessions right now. Okay. And so that's the primary way that we've been doing it. Also, within Workday and some of the training courses, in order to finish some of those courses, to get to the next course, some of them do require tests that you must take and pass to get to the next course.
Okay, and then I have another question. I'm sorry, go ahead, Jake.
Are the courses recorded, so in case they need to have a refresher as well?
So the courses that you take that are with the instructor led are not recorded. So these are actually owned and run by Workday. Some of the other kind of the ones I mentioned, we do have some subscription courses and video courses. Those you can go back and take at any time. And then all of the sessions that we're managing internally, where we are doing internal type activities, we do record those within Microsoft Teams.
Another quick question. So you said human resources should be completed between June and July?
Yes.
Okay. And then recruitment and admissions in the fall?
No, recruiting and admissions for student would be the fall. That is correct. Recruiting for employees is part of the HR component that will go live in June of this year.
I apologize. I did mean for students.
Okay.
Okay. And then, so when we're talking about students, are we making sure, because that's our bread and butter is servicing our students.
Yes.
Are we making sure when we have this system implemented that the non-traditional student, like the reverse transfer student, that all of their credits from before, will they be, will our staff members be able to access that to ensure a smooth transition for students that have credits from a long time ago and now they're coming back? I mean, will we be able to accommodate those?
Yeah, those are some of the things that we're actually, as we're going through the planning stage. So again, for recruiting and admissions, that doesn't necessarily apply as much for student. But in the next wave, those are some of the big questions that we'll have to answer is how much data do we bring from the old system into the new system? So let's say a person took 3 courses 20 years ago. The question is, do we bring that over into the new system? Just in case they do come back. So those are some of the things we'll be going through as we go through the student process and working with the JJC functional experts within each of those areas. That's how those decisions will be driven. And then those decisions will be taken to the steering committee just to confirm that they are correct.
Okay, thank you.
And then kind of going off of what Trustee Morales kind of was just hitting at, like during the student phases, for like the testing and right before it's like deployed, will there kind of be, is there a plan to have like the students test it out before it goes into effect?
Absolutely. So again, that's the third line item that we start on that student project starting next year. For that phase of the project, that's the one that will impact students. And that is where we, as part of the change management, we want to bring in students to get input, to actually show what the system and how it's going to work. And again, to make sure we create those proper change management activities to be able to communicate to existing students how the system's going to be different from what they're doing today. Obviously, for new students coming in, it will be what they'll know. Yeah. But we will be working with that, and our change management plan will take that into consideration.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jerome. Very good.
All right, thank you. Is there another?
I don't think so.
Moving on, DEI update.
The DEI update is going to be postponed until February. Escortina, Dr. Irvin had a family situation that she needed to attend tonight.
Next item, student trustee survey response.
I'd like to invite Dr. Amy Gray to the podium.
Good evening, everyone, and I appreciate the opportunity to share our feedback from students via 2 surveys. And I think what you'll see is there are trends that are seen in both of our surveys. So we had 2 surveys. One, as you know, was initiated by our student trustee, Ian, and we had 87 responses. There were 6 questions, and there was an area for open comments. At the end, and both of these surveys were sent out during the end of the fall semester. The second survey was initiated by iCampus. We had 445 responses, 18 questions, and also an area for open comments. So I had to pull out the questions that were most directly related to academics. And so we will go through each one of those. One of the first questions on the student-initiated survey was, have you struggled academically with the online format? And as you can see, about half, a little over half of our students have struggled. The themes that I pulled out of the comments were they really want face-to-face back. Online is not for me. It's a lot of work. They want more Zoom, more Teams meetings. Their teachers were very helpful. They want more communication, and some said online classes actually helped because it allowed them to work. I thought this was a really good question, and I'm so glad Ian included this one, and this is about mental health. How many of our students are dealing with mental health issues? And as you can see, more than half are. The themes that came through, again, were feeling overwhelmed, feeling depressed, anxiety, stress. They really need the empathy. They appreciated the JJC Wellness Center and even noticed that in some cases, employees felt stressed. Now, I apologize for all, I apologize for all of this writing on here. What I really want to draw your attention to are the most common responses that we received. And so the question to how can the college help you accomplish your goals next semester, the most common answers, face-to-face classes, more compassion, understanding, flexibility. A lot of responses were nothing, keep up the good work. We appreciate what you're doing, but also more engagement via Teams or Zoom meetings. The open-ended question asked, what has someone at the college done that has helped you? And there were so many of these. This could have been another 17 slides. I don't have time for those. So everything from the faculty, a lot of responses about appreciation of the foundation and the money that was available to help them, advising center. It was pretty much all over the college. Okay, so if we look at survey 2, we found that most of our students are taking between 3 and 4 courses. Over 83% or so are saying that Canvas is easy to use. They're asked, how important is it to work with other students in your class? And that was kind of all over the place. Some said yes, some said no, some were in between. They are aware of most of our resources, but this gives us an opportunity to see where we can provide more education about the resources they don't know about. So they, of course, know about their instructor. They know about tech support. They know about online tutoring. They weren't as familiar with our online retention specialist that we have, or that they can walk in and get support for iCampus. To me, of all of the slides that I presented, this might be the most important one because it really is a culmination of everything. The question, would you take another online course here at JJC? As you can see, over 86% yes, said yes they would. And would you recommend a JJC online course to a prospective student? And again, we're up over about 83% on that as well. And then open comments. Again, you see the same trends coming through. It's difficult. They want to be in class. They want more engagement. Many of them are very appreciative of everything that the college is doing to help them. We did have some that they didn't understand the fees. And so I presented this to the faculty last week. Every week I do a town hall for academic affairs. And we just talk about what's going on and things that we need to work on. And so I shared actually a little bit more in depth because I had more time, but more in depth on these responses and really stress the importance of getting out in front of it. So some of the things that we had already planned on doing and we reviewed were starting this semester, every course has an introductory video. So faculty were given the opportunity to make their own introductory video so the student can see their face, they know the expectations. If they didn't feel comfortable doing that, iCampus put together one that's actually moderated by a student, and that one can be placed in the class as well. Went through expectations. There are some students that are so new to online classes, they don't know that it's reasonable to give a faculty member 24 hours to get back to you, and they just don't know. So I'm really stressing with the faculty to be very clear on what the students can expect so that they don't feel more anxious when they don't hear from a faculty member right away. We did introduce, I believe it's about 10 synchronous courses, meaning it's all online, but it's scheduled at a certain time of the day. Everybody logs on at the same time with the faculty member, and the entire course is taught that way. Most of our courses, though, are more of a hybrid approach, where they're doing online work as well as synchronous and asynchronous, meaning the faculty member is there either to do a lecture, to do advising, to do a review session for an exam, and they also have asynchronous activities. I have to give kudos to our iCampus team. Dr. Chris Ostwinkle has really stepped up and provided amazing professional development for faculty. He listened to what students needed, and he listened to what faculty needed. And we have been running courses pretty much every month since March of last year. And then just remember that we need to provide holistic care. You know, we as the faculty, well, I'm not faculty, but academic affairs has probably the most time spent with students. And so we need to be the ones reminding them that we have an amazing wellness center, that we have advisors who are there at all hours of the day practically these days because they're all virtual, but making sure that they have all of these resources at their disposal. And with that, I'd be happy to take any questions.
I think you're doing a fantastic job, Dr. Gray.
Thank you very much.
I'm sorry, I do have a quick question. You said, I think in here that students were confused about fees.
Yes.
Yeah, I took a few phone calls. I think we have like 5 different fees. And I don't know if it's too much to ask you to kind of give us a little breakdown on what those are.
Well, I could probably get a more accurate answer back to you, but the questions that we got were mainly around lab fees. And so they were asking, hey, we're not in lab, why do we still have lab fees? We, I will say, especially in the spring semester of last year, didn't do as good a job as we did in the fall of explaining, okay, you're not physically in lab, but that lab money went to things like technology, new software, lab kits that were sent to their homes and things like that. I know, as a matter of fact, I know where it is on my desktop, where that breakdown of all the fees is, and I'll be happy to give that to you. But the main thing that they were asking about is, we're not in lab, but we still have lab fees. Why?
Yeah, there was one, and I don't remember the name of it. And I thought, I don't have an idea what that fee is for. And I think there's like 5 fees, and I think it's
Yeah.
like the second one listed. So if you send it to me, then I can go over it, and maybe I can reach out to you and ask you more questions at that time.
Okay.
Thank you so
I
much.
can just
Sure.
share, we have a course fee, we have a lab fee, we have a student fee, we have a technology fee, and a capital fee,
Yeah,
correct?
the capital. That's what was,
Those are the 5.
what is the capital fee for?
And I'm going to actually defer to Jeff because he's here tonight for the finance. He
Okay.
can share
We'll touch a little bit on that in the financial
Okay,
plan.
okay.
But I mean, the capital fee is basically covering our tuition-backed bonds. They were used for a lot of the construction on campus.
And we're charging that to students?
That's why the plan back started in 2008.
It's to pay for the construction, right? Basically? I'm sorry?
Some of the buildings on campus.
Wow, okay.
And the students did accept all this. They voted for it. They said, if we're going to get new buildings, yeah, we'll pay an extra couple of bucks on our tuition.
Okay.
Most recently, I think the last one was a $4 increase to support the event center in Romeoville campus.
Okay,
And students were engaged with that as well.
okay. Yeah, I don't think I was here when that vote took place, so I didn't know what that fee, and I know I didn't have that fee when I was here like 20 years ago, so, okay, all right, thank you.
But you didn't have any new
Didn't we
buildings.
waive some of the fees?
We had the greenhouses next door, and we were fine with it. We still got a good education.
Didn't we waive some of the fees, though?
Oh, sorry. We did waive the online fee, the online course fee, and that was something that we proposed to the board. We actually had it for summer, fall, and spring, correct, Jeff?
That's what I thought.
Yes.
That's what I thought. I just wanted to bring that to refresh our memories that we did do some waiver of fees.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gray. Next item is 2.4, Foundation and Grants Report.
I'd like to invite Christy Mulvey to the podium.
Good evening. Each year I come to you and give you kind of a financial update on our fundraising efforts, our grant efforts, and our communication with the community and all the support we receive from our donors. First of all, I'm very pleased to say that back in 2019, not so far ago, we had a huge celebration with our foundation board and some of our major gift donors that we hit the $25 million mark. As you can see up here tonight, I'm pleased to say that as of December 31st, 1920, we have total assets of $31 million. Our endowments sit at $15 million. The next slide, I'd like to talk about our investment portfolio. As you can see, it has consistently increased in both total assets and endowments over the last several years. Our annual contributions were down in FY20 from the previous year. That's when we received the $2 million gift from faculty member Bill Johnson. And those we aren't, we never know when to expect planned giving gifts. But amazingly, as of only 6 months into this fiscal year, we've already raised $1.6 million during COVID. And the total amount last year was $1.3 million. I'm very pleased to announce that we have a new member on our staff. Her name is Jennifer Davis. She was an adjunct faculty member here at Joliet Junior College for 12 years in our English department, and she worked in development at North Central College. Jen started in our office on January 11th and has already kicked off her first fundraising campaign. This year's campaign is called Rock Your Socks Off. Every year we have a new design for our socks. We've had Argyle and we've had striped, and this year we're doing polka dot socks. So they sell for $20 a piece, and we ask alumni and friends to buy the socks online. We mail them to them. And on Friday, February 19th, we're going to have a Rock Your Socks Off Day. And we realized the last couple years we've had a lot of alumni, foundation board members that took pictures at their various places of employment with their socks on. The money goes to our alumni giving campaign. Employee giving was down this past year from $98,000 to $87,000. As you know, Jerome had mentioned that we've lost some faculty or administrators that were giving generously to the college, and we have a lot of new ones that have joined us that will hopefully jump on the campaign that's coming up. But it's wonderful to be able to see the amount that our staff and all the employees, and no matter what level, give to the college, and that's $87,000. This year's campaign, Jen Davis will kick off on April 12th, and that will close on April 30th. So we're looking forward to seeing how successful that campaign is. I'm pleased to say that we voted in all new executive board members in January. Our president served for 2-year terms. We had a wonderful time for 2 years with Jennifer Howard. Jennifer is the owner of the TCB Wise in Shorewood. She's an alum, and she is now the executive director, CEO of the Joliet Chamber of Commerce. This year, starting in January for a 2-year term, our new president is Dr. Brett Gould. Brett was the assistant superintendent of schools for Lockport High School. Our president-elect is Mr. Dave Conterio, who is the president of Hometown Bank. Mr. Bill Conti, who's vice president, is the vice president of Morgan Stanley. And Miss Diane McDonald, she's an at-large member, and she is the new appointed assistant superintendent of Joliet Township Schools. Chris Brown is from Morris. Donna Timer is a retired horticulture teacher. And so we've got a great executive board that has taken place now, that has taken a seat for 2 years. I'm happy to say that we voted in 7 new board members. We have a full foundation board now of 28. We have Christopher Brayman, who is the Grundy County Bank Vice President in charge of ag banking, which is really important with us with our ag program. Mr. Eric Danielson, who is the Administrative Director at Silver Cross Hospital. Our relationship with Silver Cross, of course, is very important to us with our nursing clinicals and things like that. Mr. Mike Fagan is an alum. He's from Trinity Health, works out of Loyola, doing area claims. His family has a very large endowment. His mother died and she was a nurse, and we have a nursing endowment in his family's name. We've brought on Kim Landers, who is the Vice President of Patient Care Services at Morris Hospital, again, another hospital that is important to our allied health programs. Mr. Cornell Lurie Sr., who is our Regional Community Director Relations at Midland States Bank, who is also a donor of the college, him himself and the bank. Then we have Dr. Kathleen Wills. Some of that name might be familiar. She's a retired professor of nursing, and we're excited to have her on. And then Miss Jean Cordetti Yates. Jean is the daughter of John Cordetti, longtime business faculty and department chair at the college. Their family has over $100,000 endowment, and she's a retired special ed teacher from District 86. So we've got a great board, and we have some new board members. We had a board retreat, new member retreat on January 13th, and as I say to everybody, I'm very lucky that all 28 foundation board members write a check and give to the college. They all are invested financially, not only their time, their treasures, and their talents to support Joliet Junior College. Next, just real quick, we'll talk about, as you know, every time I get up here, I tell you about how wonderful student emergency is. We went into COVID with about $120,000 in help for our students. We'd get, requests off and on, but nothing like we're getting now. Sometime this week, I think we had 67 requests. Last week, we had 42 requests. Those are going through our Dean of Student Success, Dr. Kaysen, Luzbatek, and then we get the information on the student, and then I approve it, and then we give the student help. We've given, originally, the student emergency was just helping with food cards and with maybe some books, and now, as you know, we've bought laptop computers for the loan program. We've gotten hotspots. We've got Aldi cards because a lot of our students are hungry. Gas cards so they can get to their labs, and now we're paying tuition and books for a lot of our students. So I approved a long list today. I send an email to the bookstore, give them the student's name and ID number, tell the student, go ahead and order your books, and the student emergency account picks it up. We don't want any student with above a 2.0 grade point average that wants to come to school here to not be able to afford to come. We also don't want somebody to be hungry. We don't want them not to be able to get here, and have gas as a problem. So I went out and got another $1,000 worth of Thornton gas cards last week, and we're sending and helping students as fast as we can as they request it. As you can see, we used to just give scholarships away for the fall. They would apply in January to May, and we just gave them one time. We'd split them between the 2 semesters. But in the last several years, we've had a lot of students that start in January, and we have a need for kind of a double cycle. So I'm pleased to say that we doubled the amount of scholarships available for spring, and this year we gave 100 scholarships for spring semester. As you can see the numbers here, we gave away $756,000 in FY20. As you know by one of my reports, the foundation gave $100,000 for the Smart Start Scholarship Program. We gave 200 students $500 awards to get enrollment up, and we had quite a few apply for that, and that was a very successful program. And I thank Dr. Yolanda Farmer and our financial aid department because they helped get all that up and on the students' accounts. As the foundation, we don't put the money on the student's account, so we have to work with them to get that money on and make sure the student knows and is registered and ready to go. So I want to thank those partners with us. FY20, we brought in 7 new annual and endowed scholarships. As you know, our endowment scholarships start at a minimum of $30,000. Our annuals can be anywhere from $500 up. This year, after only 6 months in FY21, we have 11 scholarships already. So we've surpassed last year, and we're only halfway through the year. As most of you know, grants, I have 2 full-time grant writers that work under my department. They write grants, state, federal, corporate foundation, family foundation, and community foundation. And we usually do a projection for the year and then where we are. And last year, they thought they'd bring in about 6.2 million. They brought in $7.1 million. Oftentimes with the corporate foundations, community and family, they need a 501c3. That's where the foundation comes in, and we're able to give them the documentation they need. And then again, as of November 16th, they've already surpassed this upcoming year's goal and are at $7.448 million. So I've got a great team. Our head grant writer has a law degree. She's fabulous, and so is her partner. And I think everybody works very well, and we get a lot of compliments from the faculty on the grant process. Next is fundraising initiatives for next year. As I said, we lost our alumni person. Her dad, her husband got transferred to North Carolina. We hired Jen, but during that time, we didn't have a third fundraiser. Amanda Quinn stepped in and did our year-end segmented appeal. We now are able to segment our asks by ethnicity, major, or past giving. And our theme was take part in their journey. We like to work along with external communications on their theme for the school. And we took that off and we sent out the biggest amount we've ever sent out, because we can't get together for lunches. We can't during COVID. Everything has to be different. So we had to go through the mail, and we sent our largest appeal so far to 25,000 alumni and friends. As you can see, non-COVID year 2019, we brought in 137 gifts for 326,000 on just that year-end appeal. This year, with COVID, I would have never thought the numbers would be like that. We were always on plan B or C if an event got canceled. We brought in 248 gifts for a total of $681,000. One of the gifts alone was an alum from this college named Paul Gansert. I got a check 2 weeks ago from him for $475,000. So our increased dollar amount from last year to this year is 109%, and our 81% increase of number of gifts. This is just a sample of our segmented appeal. As you can see, we always use our students. We always use a diverse students. We have an athlete, all different academic diversity and ethnicity, and we just had a wonderful response to these. But these are the 4 students that we featured this year. We also did a targeted campaign for Tribute to Men of Color. I talked to you one of my reports about that we were going to send that out to 1,500 alumni and friends. The majority were people that didn't donate, and as of January, we've brought that scholarship fund to $11,000. We featured one of our foundation recipients, scholarship recipients, Royce Chandler, in that, and we continue to get gifts for that targeted campaign. We send out an endowment report every year. We like to send to our endowment donors the total amount of money that is in their account, how much, as we know, 4% gets paid out on endowments, and what the amount is that goes to students, what the average person gives to the college, and a bunch of information. And this past year, this endowment report was very well received. We got several calls, and we got over $100,000 in additional funds because of the endowment report. Our very generous major gift donors would look and say, you know what, I want to give more money to the student. And they'd call us, and we increased their amount. So it's an important piece of the communication of nurturing the relationship between the college and the community. Next, we're getting ready to kick off our this year's awards for innovation and excellence. These are the projects that the foundation supported this year. As you see, there's a lot in media. Because we're virtual, we did the Revolution light boards that they're using, the mobile Z-Space, the laptops, the microphone system. There was a lot of needs in the area of technology because we're kind of in a different state now with COVID. So those are the gifts, the grants that we awarded this past year. And then starting February 1st, everybody will get, all the departments and employees will get a notice that we're going to give another $50,000 in awards for 2021, and they'll be able to apply for those. And last but not least, here's the events. Last year, of course, the only event that we ended up having was our athletic golf outing. It was successful. We had more people than we ever had. I think people were ready to get outside and have a good time. So this year, of course, we know we have to have some virtual events. So our virtual Night of Stars will be April 15th. Mark your calendars. You'll get an invite. First time we're going to do a fine arts concert, which is virtual. That will be April 22nd, and we already have sponsorship money coming in. Our athletic golf outing will be August 13th, and then we're crossing our fingers that we'll be able to start the have the 5K this year, and that right now is set for October 17th. If any of you have any questions, I could take them at this time.
You're doing a fine job.
Thank you, sir.
Excellent,
Thank you,
excellent.
sir. I got a great staff, and I get a lot of help from our president.
Okay.
Christy, you are one of, and I should say JJC is the leading for the foundation through all of the ICCTA colleges. You are the leader, absolutely the leader in fundraising and all that you do. So congratulations on that.
Thanks, Maureen. Any? Okay.
Moving on, 2.5, JD Ross Award Process.
Okay, I'd like to invite Kelly Roder Tonelli to the podium and provide the board with a recommendation on the modification of the J.D. Ross Extraordinary Award selection process. Kelly?
Yes. All right, hold on a minute. There we go. Good evening, everybody. It's good to be back with you together in an unusual time, but I'm excited to talk with you a little bit about some of the recommendations we have for the J.D. Ross Extraordinary Service Award process review. So given that we've got, kind of a mixed audience here, some folks who have been here for a long time, others who may not, I want to give you just a brief history of this award. So basically, the college launched it in 1975. It's over the years served as a wonderful tool to recognize a member of this community for distinguished service, humanitarian service. And it's, again, it is considered the highest honor bestowed by the institution. And when I think about some of the past winners, at least in my time of being involved in this process, I think of people like Terry Kunze, who volunteered for a long time with the Kiwanis Club, and on her own, through that club, decided to develop a committee that 20 years later exists today that supports the Fellowship for Adults with Disabilities. That model then grew and became a regional effort. So she's an example of one of our nominees within the last 10 years. Another one I can think of is Jim Eberhard. If you've seen the micro food pantries that have popped up all over Will and Grundy counties, and they all kind of look the same, that's his program. He started that, and he was another one that was received this award as well. So it's a really nice tool, and I think the board and college had a lot of vision when it was developed to continue to honor that altruistic work that was happening in our district and our community. So fast forward to 2004. At that time, we have our former president, J.D. Ross, who is about to leave the institution, but not quite. And so at that time, the college and board had made the decision to rename this award to honor his legacy of service to the community. Fast forward to today, we want to do just a brief process assessment and review, because this is the first year, as far as I can tell, and in the records, that we have not given an award, that this board has not given an award. So we want to just talk about what some of the opportunities are available there for that. And I have one slide of obstacles that I think I've gathered based on feedback, and two slides featuring solutions. So I think we can get something together here this evening, hopefully. So real quick timeline. Some of you sitting here in the room tonight have served on this committee before, so you have a general sense of how it works. Typically, every October, we convene the board of directors. Quickly, the board of directors is comprised of 2 trustees, 1 faculty member, 1 staff member, the president, and 1 alumni representative. This board of directors comes together, reviews the nominations that the college has received. And at that point, after pretty extensive dialogue, they forward, that board of directors forwards a recommendation to this board for approval. And so that typically happens in November or December based on how many nominees we're forwarding, if we need to verify any information. And so that's why you see a little bit of, opportunity in the time period in that space. And then finally in April, something new and recent that we started doing was partnering with the foundation and using our annual Night of Stars to bring our J.D. Ross Award winner or winners to that stage to be recognized there publicly. All right, briefly, process summary. This is how it is written today. A nominee must reside in our District 525, and they must be personally responsible for having affected or substantially contributed to a major accomplishment through community service. And I'm going to point that out later. I've specifically put that in quotes directly from our policy. We define extraordinary service as humanitarian service, distinguished public service, scholarly service, or creative attainment. Nominees can be acknowledged for one of these or all of these. It's really dependent on the person making the nomination. And then quickly, list of high-level standards and restrictions. We have a maximum of 2 recipients per year, so up to 2 recipients. And these are high standards. So there may only be 1 recipient selected by the board of directors and forwarded to the board of trustees for approval, or no recipients to forward to the board for approval. And that's, again, just to maintain that high level of standard. So if there's maybe kind of a year where we don't think that we've gotten the nominations that we think align with the ideals and values of that award, we have that option to do that. So next, the nomination should provide specific information on outstanding contributions. We've had a lot of conversations about what that looks like. Dr. Mitchell, I know you've been in the room, Chairman Wunderlich, Trustee Morales, making sure that we get questions to our, or answers to our questions, and ensuring that nominators are being specific in what they're sharing with the committee on this person that they would like to see recognized. We use a scoring and assessment matrix that really helps to drive the dialogue and make sure that when we are having conversation as a group, we are all assessing these nominees in a consistent format. And then finally, as I've indicated, we do forward that recommendation to the board for approval, either in November or December. And the board can approve no more than 2 winners for the year, and it must be done by unanimous consent. And that is in the policy. And what I kind of want to talk about with that is that I believe, in my interpretation of reading this, when this was developed, it was really important for the board to have that unanimous consent, because not only is it a public vote, it really shows a coming together of the college to celebrate the individual or individuals that are nominated for that award. So here's a couple of obstacles over the last, I would say, year and a half that I've been able to develop, whether that's talking with folks that have served on the committee, talking with Dr. Mitchell, so on and so forth. First of all, as it stands now, the committee can only score and assess candidates using information that is provided only in this nomination packet. So in the days of the internet and just a lot of people being out and about and connected, the way that this policy is written right now is that you can only use to make your decision and score your matrix exactly what that nominator has provided. And in some cases that varies wildly. Some people are very descriptive and provide a lot of data. Others do not. Another thing we've run into is, as we've had conversations in this committee work, is that there's the definition of the award is vague. And I think that's partially intentional, because we want to be able to open it to interpretation. We want to be able to bestow it upon, a diverse group of individuals who conduct a diverse group of work. And so what we really need to understand with that is, and the questions that we've had surrounding that is, what does substantial contribution mean? Does it mean that it's long-term service in our district, or is it a unique impact? And we've had a lot of discussion back and forth and a lot of conversation about how truly to interpret that. Final thing here is that the ESA committee forwards the recommendation to the Board of Trustees for approval at the end of the nomination and consideration process. And does this process need to be modified? And the only reason I bring that up is we do have typically 2 trustee representatives who serve on this committee. So there is a channel of information to be shared with the trustees as a whole. But I do know that there have been questions in the past, just as an example, could we see a list of people who were nominated? And just kind of keep that information free flowing. That's not written within the procedure anywhere, but it's been something that's been requested, I think by a couple of trustees back and forth over the last couple of years. So let's move on to solutions. There's 2 things that I want to propose to you today that I think can just be easily done, and I think help us conduct this work and make sure that we go into this next fiscal year being able to honor a very deserving person in this community, because we know there are so many doing altruistic work and making generous investments on behalf of our community. So the first one is, I had talked about the committee scoring and assessing candidates using only information provided in the nomination packet. I'm going to go out and say this is the information era. It's not 1975. It's not 2004. If we can modify the procedures to indicate that we can use external data that is either found through research and can be verified, that we can then introduce that into the conversation and make that part of the collective conversation as the ESA Board of Directors determine who they would like to forward to the board. Secondly, ESA committee forwards recommendation to the Board of Trustees for approval at the end of the nomination and consideration process. Again, something that's just come up, and I think what we need to do so we're all on the same page, bless you.
Thank you.
Is bake this into the process if it's something that the board finds helpful, just in terms of, again, flow of information and conduit of information. And that is to have one of the 2 trustees who is serving on the board of directors simply provide a list confidentially to the board of who's been nominated. So again, prior to that vote in November or December, it's a list. So last thing, and again, we're going to come back to this because I think at this point, so we've got the 2 things that I've heard most consistently in terms of feedback. Okay. And then we've got this last slide, which is that kind of vague definition of the award. And I've seen several of our committees really struggle with this. And my question, and I think the collective question for the board is, because it's an award given on behalf of the board, does this award mean that it's a substantial contribution to our community longer term? Or does it mean that we want to award people or honor people that have made shorter term but large impacts? What does the board want this to signify? And I can give you examples of folks who maybe have a long resume and breadth and depth of service to the community that haven't maybe necessarily done something major, but over a period of time, they've served on several boards, they've created volunteer efforts. And so there's really a lot of dialogue about what does this award really mean? And again, I think it was written with the intention for us to be able to interpret it. But I think, especially when we came to 2020 and we were not able to have a winner this year, it was really time to kind of take a step back and do an assessment of the process and see if there were tweaks along the way that we could make to make it a better process. So that is my last slide. And I'll certainly entertain any questions.
Kelly, we didn't have a winner this year because of COVID?
No.
No, because the vote was not unanimous.
Okay. Oh, wow. I used to be on that committee, but not this year.
Well, we didn't, okay, I think I understand what you're saying. So the Ross Award, as I mentioned earlier, is given in line with the other awards given by the foundation. We do that now at the annual Night of Stars because we were not able to award those individuals because the 2020 Night of Stars was canceled. We wouldn't have had a JD Ross ESA award anyway. We did not have a unanimous vote from the board. And so to stay in line with what the foundation is doing this year, this April, as Christy mentioned previously, we are holding our Night of Stars event. And so the people who missed their opportunity to be recognized last year will then get to do that this year. So
Okay,
instead of
good.
trying to run another Ross ESA cycle, we are just following in suit with what we would have done in 2020.
So do you want our recommendations tonight? I can give you mine right now.
And I would be more than happy to hear them.
I don't think it makes any difference if it's a long-term person that's been doing it or somebody that did something very, very good in a short period of time. Shouldn't make any difference if it's for the best of the college. My other thing is, I don't think that the board should get the list of the people that did not get the awards, because I don't want anybody to come back and say, oh, I know Joe Blow, and I don't know why he didn't get it, because he's a good guy and this and that. The committee should make their recommendation, and that's it. The rest of the board, it is what it is by the committee. It's a committee structure. That's just my.
But Bob, just so we have back history. The back history was when Rudy was on, we all got to see who was being put up so we could give him feedback on anything we knew and anything we considered that should be considered removable, which we haven't had the last couple of years. When Rudy was here, all those years, he let us see who the contestants were or who the people were that were being put up. And I still think if we're voting on them, we should give some input to our trustees that are on that committee so that we have the right to vote. And I think that that's only fair. I like the way that that Andy had handled it. Andy Mahalik, sorry, I keep calling him Rudy. Andy had handled it. I think that should be the way it should be, that we should have some input looking at who the people are so we can give our feedback as anything personal that we know about them.
I just think you said the right words, Trustee Broderick, back history. It's whoever it's what the present people want to have now.
But Bob, if people are new to doing this and they have no clue who these people are, and some of us do, and some of us are, I mean, I've had foundation members that have come to me that have said, hey, why didn't this get consideration? Did you guys know about this one and this one? I think in only fairness to us, if we're voting on it, we should know who was put up and what their background is. And Andy used to ask us if there was anything we had of concern because he wanted 100% vote on it. I liked his approach. I thought it was good. And I don't care whether it's history, present, I think we need to have some input somehow, because if I'm making a vote, I want to know the history behind what was going on, because I don't want to be accused of not knowing about anything. I think if we're trustees, we should be included, and our trustee representative should come and tell us, just like Andy did.
But I think that would also could be construed as the board micromanaging the committee.
I don't think it's micromanaging.
It's up to the majority of the board. I just gave my opinion. It's up to the majority.
No, I know.
And Kelly can pull the board.
Right.
If I can say something, please, as a former participant of this committee, I think one of the solutions, Kelly, that you brought here today can solve this. One of them says that we can use external data when you look at external data, you can find a lot of positive things. You can also find a lot of not so positive things. I think it goes both ways. But that's why we have a committee, and I believe you said in the committee, we have 2 board members, right? Okay. So having 2 board members being involved and engaged with the committee and looking at all of the candidates and then narrowing it down with, the help of everybody else. I think the board members that are on the committee make good judgment calls. And I agree with, I see Trustee Broderick's point. I do, but this is an award. It's not like we're hiring for a job. This is an award we're giving to somebody that has done some type of substantial contribution, whether it be long-term or short-term. It's an award. They're not going to gain benefits. They're not going to get a pension out of it. It's an award. So I think I agree with Chairman Wunderlich, having been a former member of this committee.
This is Trustee Garcia. Just wanted to echo what you guys are mentioning. I do not really see the benefit of having having the whole list of everyone that was nominated. I think Trustee Morales mentioned, and even Wunderlich, that we should just be getting the information of the final people, so that way we can go ahead and make the vote and award that particular recognition.
I agree with.
Trustee Washington, we lost you.
I agree with Chairman Wunderlich.
I also echo the same beliefs as Chairman Wunderlich, Trustee Garcia, and Trustee Morales, and Trustee Washington. This is important. We have board members that serve on this committee, and I trust that the board members that serve on this committee will take in all the information, and they will make the right pick that will reflect the whole board's opinion as well. So.
If I can add just briefly, again, just for the sake of the conversation, at the top when I talked about the makeup of this committee, it's a cross-functional team. There is a lot of different people, and we've had very spirited discussions because of the different perspectives they bring to the table. So not only does the board have representation, but like I said, we've got an alumni representative, someone from the community, and 2 members, a faculty member and a staff member from our employee base.
And also stating that short-term or long-term impact, either are very key to everything that we do in this world. So I don't care if it's a short-term impact, which could have a longer-term impact in the future, or a long-term impact either. Those, either way, I figured if they deserve the award, they deserve the award.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I think the committee that presents the participants to the board, and maybe that was the way that Andy did it for a year or 2. I don't know, but that was the way it was done before. So there's no sense in having 2 committees decide.
Mr. Chairman, I had a quick question for you. I see, Kelly, in the rules you have that the nominee has to reside in the district.
Yes.
Has there been any discussion about allowing a posthumous award?
We actually have given a posthumous award. I don't believe that it is elucidated clearly in the policy, but I can speak to that because back in, I think it was 2016, the person who was up for the award actually passed away just as the college made the determination and the board voted to give that award. So we have done it once. There is a precedent, but I do not believe that that is specifically illuminated in the procedure.
Might be worth making a provision so if somebody contributes for a long time and they retire away or for whatever reason pass away, that even though they didn't live in the district when they passed, they'd still be eligible to receive
Hey, I'm
a
not going
hospice.
anywhere soon.
I'm not looking specifically at you, Mr. Chairman. Just, we're trying to clarify these rules, so I think that would be a good.
That's a good point, Carl. I think
Thank you.
part of the rules and should be, he could also, somebody that was in district for a long time that's not with us anymore.
All right.
Okay.
Anything else?
Well, thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. You do a great job with that, by the way. Thank you.
Next 3-year financial plan and budget update.
I'd like to invite Mr. Cecil Lucy to the podium.
Good evening, trustees, President Mitchell, cabinet members, staff, and guests. Today, we would like to cover with you the financial update for fiscal year 2021, budget projections for fiscal year 2022, including revenue considerations, expense considerations, and the financial projections for fiscal years 23 and 24. For the financial update for fiscal year 21, of course, we know we're in a pandemic with negative impacts, which is affecting some of our key drivers, namely the tuition revenue. So our fiscal year 21 credit hours are trending under budget by about 25,000 hours, which translates into approximately $2.8 million. For our state revenue, which is our credit hour and career to education, we have a combined budget of $8.5 million, of which we have a state budget allocation of $8.99 million. And at this point, we're not expecting any state holdback. It's unknown at this time because we also know that the state of Illinois has its own challenges. For property taxes, we expect to meet budget. On the operating expense side, fortunately, working closely with Dr. Mitchell, we are holding vacant salaries, and for faculty, we're underspending to budget by $500,000. On the staff side, we're underspending by $900,000. And then also we're holding the line on adjunct and faculty overloads. And we're currently trending under budget by $1 million. Fortunately, because of COVID, we are also trending under budget by $1.5 million for contractual supplies and travel. And we are happy to say at this time, our contingency is intact with the education fund being $500,000 and the O&M funds by $200,000. Also for your consideration, we have the Institutional CARES Act of $2.7 million, which is being used to cover the additional costs incurred due to the pandemic. So we're expecting an overall operating budget surplus contingent on state funding close to $3 million. For fiscal year 2022, we're looking at our state revenue, our base operating grant reduction of approximately 10% to $7.4 million from $8.3 million. And the CTE, approximately $700,000 in funding, which should be equal to our 2021 allocation. So we know for the state going forward, although the governor has expressed a commitment to continue funding higher education, being the accountants that we are, we're trying to be conservative and factor in less than expected revenue from the state. Also for our fiscal year 22, for our tuition revenue, because we're in a pandemic, and there'll probably be some continuation of fewer hours in terms of student enrollment, we're projecting to be under budget by about 25,000 paid credit hours, or 10.4%. So relative to fiscal year 2021, we are looking at a flat enrollment for projected fiscal year 2022. And also factoring in no tuition increase for fiscal year 2022. For your comparative purposes, we're just showing you for fiscal year 21 tuition and fees for the Illinois community colleges. And it basically shows you have a high of $186 per credit hour and a low of $122, and we're at $148. So our recommendation or proposal for tuition and fees for fiscal year 22, if you look at the fiscal year 21 amount, you're basically looking at no change, and that's $148 per credit hour, which is composed of the tuition rate of $113 per hour, the capital fee, as we discussed earlier, of $21, the technology fee of $10, and the student activity fee of $4. Also, revenue projections for fiscal year 22. As we know, our property taxes is a considerable part of our budget, and we're looking at a $225 million in new property, or 1%, and we're looking at the CPI, or Consumer Price Index, increase of 1.4% for calendar year 2021. And this would be a cost average increase to an average homeowner of an additional $2.30. Also, the debt service levy will not increase due to the bond refunding in 2019. And Mr. Jeff Heap will talk to you about that shortly. So we're looking at a 2.4% increase in property taxes equal to $1.3 million, and a 1% increase in property tax that equates to $545,000. And this also shows you the comparative 2018 tax rates for Joliet Junior College and compared to some of our member state community colleges. And it shows, of course, unfortunately, that we're one of the lowest rates as compared to some of our peer community college institutions. On the expense side, for the projections for fiscal year 22, some of the drivers, of course, will be personnel costs. And based on the union contractual relationships, there's probably going to be a 2.5 to 3.5% increase that has to be factored into the budget. Benefits, we're not looking at any healthcare cost increase. We've been doing well in terms of holding the line, even in spite of COVID. And then also material supplies and contractual services, we're looking at a 0 to 3% increase. And again, our objective is to be conservative in our budgeting, although we expect to still be okay. So if we look at our revenue and expense assumptions for fiscal years 2022, 2023, and 2024, you basically will see for the revenue side, and this is just basically to recap everything. I won't just go through everything in detail, but for the state revenue, for fiscal year 22, again, we're looking at a 10% reduction, being conservative, and hopefully the governor will continue to make the commitment to higher ed, and it will be something much less than that. And then you'll see the other numbers that we just covered for the property taxes, credit hours, tuition rate increase, and on the expense side, the impact from the collective bargaining agreements, 2.5 to 3.5%, and going through the years 22, 23, and 24. So those are definitely major expense drivers and costs. So if you look at the numbers that relate to some of these assumptions, as you see, for fiscal year 21 projected actual, where our revenue is $97 million And we know that's reduced based on the lower enrollments. We're making that up with lower costs and expenses and transfers of 94 million to give us a surplus of 2.8 million. And then as we look to fiscal years 22, 23, and 24, namely looking at fiscal year 22, you see basically the flat revenue. And then you see the expenditures and transfers that basically shows the higher personnel costs, and plus contingency and new initiatives of 700,000 gives us a projected deficit of 3.2 million. However, let me say, and thanks for the guidance and direction of Dr. Mitchell, we are being conservative as we're looking at staffing. So our contingency list includes staffing of 2 million for faculty retirees, vacancies and furloughs, and then other potential expense reductions of 10%, and then a capital transfer and contingency of 500,000. So we make up the deficit through maintaining our expenditures and costs. So that gives us a total of 3.25 million, basically planning to break even for fiscal year 22. And then as we look to fiscal year 23 and 24, those deficits, of course, those will be determined, but likely you will find similar cost containments and aggressive reductions in expenses and costs to do the same things for fiscal years 23 and 24. And now at this time, I'd like to bring Jeff up and he can speak to the master plan project and also the bond situation.
See if you can understand me with this mask on or not. The master plan projects, there's basically been no change on this since the board retreat back at the end of October. The only thing is we kind of moved the footbridge out kind of one more year, but the concept of respiratory therapy, the allocation for the campus police, and potential for some land purchase is still out there and kind of covered within the funds that we have available in our O&M restricted fund. With that said, and with receiving the funds reimbursement for City Center, basically $24 million could be allocated toward helping reduce our debt, basically for the tuition-backed bonds. As we noted previously, we got a little bit outstanding on our 2012A. They're callable in June of 22. The 2013A is not callable. They don't have a whole lot of maturity left. The main one is the 2013B bonds. They go all the way out through 2038 and are callable basically just under 3 years from now and are at a higher rate of interest. When we looked at this before, with the credit hours and with kind of the reduction in paid hours, even with the capital assessment fee compared to the debt service we have quite a deficit for the near term, even assuming credit hours kind of bounce back as we come back to hopefully having more classes on campus, that our credit hours kind of come back to where they were. Looking at overcoming that, we talked about, calling some of those bonds in with the 24 million. Went back and forth and worked a little bit with Dan Forbes from Spear Financial on what some of our options are. I'll touch base on these. Right now, the way the Illinois or U.S. tax code is, we cannot issue refunding tax exempt bonds. We'd have to issue them as a taxable basis. The only good thing, interest rates are at historical lows. Dan ran this scenario, assuming we called the bonds and issued it based on what the current rates are in with a little bit of cushion, just assuming the rates went up over the next few months. And then put the funds in escrow to pay the 2013B bonds off on the call date. even on a taxable basis, the average interest cost is only 2.5%. We could run the risk of waiting, until 23 when the bonds are callable. But tax exempt rates, as soon as they cross 3%, we're losing money on it. And there's only been a few times over the last 10 years where tax exempt bonds were that low. And basically right now is one of them. But what they'll be in 2.5, 3 years from now, I don't know, but I don't expect them to be this low. With this scenario, and by being able to putting it in, do a defeasance and put some of the proceeds into escrow, we could basically get the savings starting in 2023. Got a little issue there for the first couple of years, just the way the bonds are maturing. You can't level out the savings as well. You end up with around $1 million, and then it could potentially jump to $1.7 million. With that, it's the concept of looking forward into 23 with the projections estimating potential for a $5 tuition increase. But if we did the bond defeasance and refunding and everything, and with that savings, the capital assessment fee could be reduced to kind of basically, for the most part, offset that. We could plan for trying to set the college up for a very small tuition increase in fiscal year 23. And then depending if everything played out, even looking out, when the savings bump back up in 25, that even a couple years later, there's the potential for another, $2 or $3 offset to a tuition increase to keep the tuition costs as low as is possible. I guess looking for a little bit, if this is still on the right track, if the board likes this. I mean, we talked about asking Dan to come to the February meeting, give a little more background, and answer any further specific questions the board may have.
Yeah, please.
I do have a quick question.
Yes.
So I don't particularly like hearing anything about a tuition increase and much less a fee increase. You're either taking it from the student's right pocket or left pocket. It's coming out from the student. Do you have something here that doesn't project any type of an increase? Because you said one of these is worst case scenario, a couple dollar fee increase in 2023. Do you have any other projections in this packet that do not include or allude to a tuition or fee increase?
There's only two options
That's
to make
it?
that work.
The two that you gave, right?
Well, no, I meant the only way to get that and to overcome lack of return inflation is you're talking drastic changes in operations of the college.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Union contracts, because we are primarily a personnel business.
Correct.
So, I mean, personnel costs drive our budget.
Correct. But we can't put all of this on the students either. We have our goal is to produce skilled students to get them into the workforce to earn a living wage. That's the main goal. Yes, we do need to have staffing costs. I get it. But we need to work, maybe our staff needs to work more creatively to see how we can increase enrollment, not fees or tuition, but raising enrollment is going to get us where we need to go. Not always going back to, nickel and diming the students. If we can focus on how we can work together and build more partnerships with our communities to have students want to come here and stay here and retain them, I would entertain that opposed to the easy way out, which is let's raise fees or let's raise tuition. And I know we're staff, I get it, and we have great staff, but I think we can work more creatively together to meet all of our financial goals. So if you can bring this gentleman in February, what was his name? Dan Forbes, yeah.
But Dan's just going to talk on the bond stuff. I mean, that's all.
That's fine. I think we need to know a little bit more about that.
Gotcha.
Yeah, thank you. That's just me. I don't know what my colleagues have to say.
Yep.
Yes.
Maybe I'm not seeing something here, but in tuitions and fees in FY '23, we're going to raise tuition by $5, but we're going to lower the capital fee by $4. So the total impact on a student is going to be $1.
That's the concept and the projection
concept,
here.
okay.
I mean, another year goes by, like I said, projections are
And it's just
projections are only
projection.
good at that point in time. and-
Projections, assumptions, okay. I got two other questions for you.
Yes.
One, the easy one. The easy one, seeing how I met this lovely lady years ago, President Biden's wife, who was a community college president. Do you think she'll have any impact on the president about letting out some more money for community colleges? You don't know. Neither do I.
We're hopeful.
The other thing is,
We don't get a whole lot of federal funds that don't have a whole lot of strings attached.
well,
And most of it is basically financial aid for students.
you don't know the power of a woman. Neither do I. But anyway,
I'm like, can you educate me?
in any of your assumptions, and I know it's probably not going to be much, any consideration on what the income tax, not property taxes for the 1,300 and some acres that was annexed the city of Joliet for North Point? Going from farmland to a industrial?
Usually until they build something, the assessed value doesn't change.
Assessed value won't change even though it's, the zoning was changed?
Usually even if it's zoned industrial, but if it's still farmed,
Okay.
they assess it as farmland. That's what I've always seen in the past. Soon
We
as.
We don't know when any of that is going to happen.
No, and then I don't know if the city's looking at letting it come on or if the city's talking of a TIF district. I've not heard myself.
I don't know
but-
either. And then you do know that the racetrack was sold. The Route 66 racetrack was sold, so that's, somebody's going to put some more buildings out there.
Okay. It's not, I did not know it was sold. I know
Yeah,
right
it's-
now that racetrack does not have a very high assessment because I'm not sure the grandstands are considered real property, was my understanding. I could be wrong on that. I don't know if Carl knows.
Well, that's you're talking about Center Point or North Point, that there's enterprise zones out there as well, which have an impact, so. Whether that comes on the rolls in a full capacity, marginal capacity, is all dependent on what their agreement is in the enterprise zone.
All right, thank you. Any
You
other
know,
questions for?
Well, can I just make a statement? And Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong. So Trustee Morales, we do understand what you talk about for tuition increase, and that's something we look at, we take very seriously each and every year. And Jeff, I believe this is at least the third year in a row where we're projecting zero tuition increase. And if you look at past financial plans, every year, it's like that second year, there's a projection for a tuition increase. And then fortunately, by the time we get to that year, we've been able to hold it flat. And so I believe that's at least true for the last 3 years off the top of my head.
I believe so.
Right. So, because prior to that, the impact was due to the lack of the state budget and their funding, which caused that increase. But since that time, we've been able to recover and been very proactive working with that to keep that number down to zero, that increase.
I guess I'd say it this way. For fiscal year 18, we were 144. Then we had that $2 increase there for 2 years on the tech fee.
Right.
So there was a overall small increase there for 2 years.
Mm-hmm. Well, that was due to Workday and that project. So I guess, right, if you take out the tech fee, the tuition has been
Yeah.
kept flat for the past 3 years, even though the projections had anticipated an increase, but we were able to keep it flat.
Usually it's much more of a model of here's the assumption this year and you build off of that. And then depending on what you do when you finalize the budget and, either. And a lot of times we had been very conservative on state funding and state funding has come in a little better than expected. You modify the adjustments estimates going forward, those play in and change that quite a bit.
Understood. And I know I think Dr. Cecil? Yeah, just mentioned that right now we're looking at a surplus of 3 million. And again, I know, well, I think what we need to focus on is increasing enrollment, not fees and tuition. That's it's simple. Let's engage students, get them excited about our programs, about the online courses, about our school, and they will come and work. We all need to work smarter, not harder, and doing a lot more grassroots work and getting the students here. If we increase enrollment, we don't have to increase any fees and any tuition.
Let me just
Duly
comment.
noted. And we have a comprehensive enrollment strategy that is being implemented at this point in time.
Yep.
So we're just being conservative on the budgeting side and expecting the best as it relates to enrollment and everything else
Correct.
to happen.
Right, and one other comment too, to align with enrollment, and we hear you loud and clear, and we know that. I've actually been engaged with Dr. Gray about conversations about programs that we offer, similar to the respiratory therapy program. So once that opens up and we see that new enrollment for fall of 2022, you're going to see an increase in tuition there, an increase in students and enrollment from that program. We've also been talking about some of the new computer technology and some of that, some of those areas going forward. We've talked about cannabis, what that looks like. So again, a lot of it is revamping our programs, again, to engage the students and keep them coming. So we're working on all of that in those areas.
Great. I'm hopeful that if we are able to effectively work those programs and really see that increase in enrollment, we won't even need to have this discussion on raising fees or tuition.
Correct.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. And this is basically, in summary, our budget calendar. Today, what we've covered with you, January 26th. We will look to April 28th, provide budget updates. May 12th, adopt a preliminary budget. June 16th, adopt legal budget. And July 1st, the beginning of the fiscal year 2022.
This is a great calendar. I don't think anyone's ever given us a calendar like this, so I appreciate that. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you all.
Next item, 3.1, general discussions of the board. Anything? We do not need a closed session tonight.
Correct.
So with that, could I entertain a motion in a second for adjournment? Unless you want to stay here all night?
Jim?
So moved.
We've got a motion.
Second.
We've got a second. All in favor?
Hi.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.